Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Dilbo Dabgins. That's Dilbo with the B. And in this video, we're going to be going over a bunch of tips that I've learned over my 800, 900 hours of playing Crowfall. These are all things that the game doesn't necessarily tell you. They're just little tips, one-off things that, you know, it's going to be really good that you know for when you do start playing Crowfall. All this stuff is going to be extremely helpful for you and hopefully, you know, help you guys along through that learning curve that Crowfall has inside of it. So thank you so much for clicking on this. We're going to be jumping right into this, but before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You know, you do the bell, you like the video, leave a comment down below. And I stream every single day over on my Twitch channel, 6 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/DilboDabgins. If you want to ask me a question directly, make sure you go over there, hit the follow button. I also have a 10% discount code for Crowfall down in the description. Make sure you click that link. Helps me out, gives you guys a kickback. And yeah, so I appreciate you guys a lot for clicking on this, and let's jump right into the video. All right, so let's get into these tips here. I know I'm wearing a different shirt. I'm recording this at a different time, but these first tips are all going to be about the lobby and the EK. So first things first, your inbox here. When you click at the top, these are all of the mounts and rewards and stuff you have for your backer copies or your Kickstarter rewards, stuff like that. If you redeem everything, right, it fills up your entire your vault with everything inside of that you just redeemed, right? So now I have 79 slots used out of the 200 that I have for inside of here, which is not very good. So make sure you are only redeeming the things out of your inbox that you actually are going to use. So another tip about your vault is that you can access it anywhere across all of your characters, as long as you're inside of one of the starting worlds or inside of the EK. Especially inside of the EK, if you hit B, you can open up your vault from anywhere inside of the EK. While you're in a temple, you have to actually go to the bank inside of the temple, inside of God's Reach and stuff. But then another tip is to have a mule to be able to store everything that you maybe don't want inside of your account vault. This will give you extra space, have an entire character that you basically just fill up their inventory for, and you have, you know, a bunch of extra slots because you have a mule character that is able to carry all of this stuff. So one way to be able to find gear, say you're looking to gear to buy from other players, there's no auction house inside of Crowfall, but what there are player worlds that can be set up as individual markets. So if you come to player worlds inside of the lobby tab and you just go ahead and you maybe search for market, you'll find places called marketplace. You'll find shops, maybe not shops, but I know, like, for instance, the bigger EKs like Thrasher's Lawn, and there's a trader there. Maybe it's not up right this second, but there are multiple different trader EKs that will exist that you can go in there and find player made vendors and buy gear from. And then also inside of the guild versus guild campaigns, there is a free city that, if I show you the map here, inside of the free city, inside of Dregs, this map will have player vendors inside of the free city castle, so players can sell things in their EKs or in the free city castle. So another thing is that your vault is account wide. You can access this vault from any single character that you have created inside of anywhere inside of the EK player worlds or the starter worlds. Inside of the starter worlds, you would just go into a temple. You would go to the Earth Temple and find the bank, which would be located in this southern area right here of the Earth Temple. There'll be a bank there that you can access your entire account vault from. Now, you cannot access, however, not access your vault inside of Dregs, which are guild versus guild campaigns, or faction v faction campaigns, which there aren't any running right this second, but these have their own banks associated with them. When entering a Dregs campaign, you cannot bring in anything that isn't equipped, or things that you can equip. So if you look at this screen here, it says your currently selected character has equipped items. To import these items into the campaign, it will cost 16 import tokens. Would you like to succeed? Now, these are things that are only equipped, and I can only bring in other equipment. So if I had more equipment in my inventory, this import tokens would go up. Every single campaign has a limit on the amount of things that you can bring in, but that is an adjustable rule. So other campaigns could possibly have nothing inside, nothing that you can bring in. Inside of Dregs is the only place your account vault is not accessible. Your Dregs bank is completely separate from the rest of your account until you export those items from Dregs. So I'm going to go ahead and put a few items in here, and I'm going to show you guys how to export things next. So another quick thing is, if you don't want to have to completely unequip everything or move everything out of your character's inventory when you're pulling them out of Dregs, as long as you have slots available inside of your Dregs bank, which has cap 300, as long as you have slots available, you can just unlock your character from the Dregs campaign, and it will automatically remove everything from that character and add it to your bank. See how now I have 20 things in here when I had 6 before. So now I have, for this individual campaign, I have an unlimited amount of tokens that I can use for exporting. So now I can, I can select as much stuff as I want and then go ahead and hit the export button, and then it will automatically move all the way into my account vault. Now, another thing is, you don't necessarily have to move everything out. These slots here are all individual banks that can be linked to campaigns. You can move things out from these banks even when the campaigns are over, but you cannot join another campaign if you do not have one of these slots open for a bank. So if you had all of these full and you try to join a campaign, they would ask you to delete one of these banks out of this UI. So another quick thing is that your characters in Crowfall are not bound to any world. You can move your characters freely from every single server. Right now, I am inside of God's Reach, which is a starter world. This server is technically in the EU, but I could log out and go ahead and join the NA server if I like, and I'll show you that now. So as you can see, my current Nathari assassin is inside of the God's Reach EU2. If I just wanted to go ahead and go right back into that server, I could just hit enter campaign. But what I could do is move this to another world by hitting the play button and then coming to hit God's Reach US East 2. And this is just another starter world, the same exact world that we were just in. The server's just in a different spot, but your characters can jump between any world that's available. All right, so continuing on, this is the very first quest giver you will get in the game. This starts the tutorial of Crowfall. Levels 1 through 30 are basically just a tutorial, and this quest line you start here will take you all the way through. But you do not have to do this if you do not want to. There will be multiple different ways to get to level 30, and I'll be actually making a fast level guide here soon, and that should be up before launch. But if you want to learn the game, I definitely suggest starting the NPE, talking to this NPC here, and going through the quest line. But you can stop at any time you want. You can literally just say, I don't want to do this anymore, and go grind mobs, or whatever it is you want to do. You can do that. You do not have to do the new player experience if you do not want to. So another thing is this NPC right here, Zaharis, right behind him, there is this pedestal. When you use this pedestal, this will give you a buff called Leisa's Gaze. I'm not sure if I said that right, but this increases your bandaging bonus by 5%, which allows you to bandage faster. Also, if you have VIP, you can use this tome right here to respec your character. Or you can come to this vendor right here and buy a tome of respec for 75,000 gold. And then also you have a level up pedestal here and take your character instantly level 25. Like I said, the NPE and 1 through 30 are literally just a tutorial. So getting to level 25, it's just a quick way to get through it. If you've already done the tutorial, if you've already leveled multiple characters, that's how you would do that. Or you can use 40,000 gold to buy a tome and do that here as well. Also found by this big tree is that you can change your faction right over here. So you can click on either one of these flags and change your faction. But now keep in mind, if you're inside of a guild, your guild's faction is the faction you're in, and you cannot change it unless your entire guild changes its faction. So a cool NPC that is everywhere throughout the NPE experience, when you're leveling between levels 1 and 30, you'll find these priestesses along the map. When you talk to them, they'll tell you a little bit of something interesting, a little secret that's hidden in the world. If you track that down, you'll find something really cool. So definitely pay attention to these priestesses and go see what you can find. So this vendor right here with the purple and the question mark, this vendor will give you a random piece of gear. It could possibly give you all the way up to a blue war tribe gear, which is pretty good gear. It's not terrible by any means. So if you want to test your luck on trying to get something good and you got some extra gold, go ahead and try to roll this a few times and see if you can get something good. So you can duplicate items via factories. You take your item, put it into the factory here, and use the resources that it's requesting to duplicate it. Every time you do duplicate an item, it uses the item's durability. So eventually you will have to recraft this item because it will completely break. And you cannot create duplications from duplications. So the original item is actually extremely important to keep on you to be able to outfit your entire guild when necessary. There's also an enchanting system in the game. So you open up this UI, you put in your item, it asks for the certain resources that it needs, and you can enchant your weapon with different types of enchants. There's things that add damage, things that subtract weapon weight, things that add buff for harvestings, and then you can also use this system to transmog your items to be able to add cool visual effects. So in Crowfall, you cannot repair gear. Your gear will eventually completely break. This is to make sure crafters and harvesters are always relevant, and it actually is really stimulating for the economy of the game. One thing you want to make sure you do is before your gear completely breaks, it's still worth full value in gold, so you can sell it to a vendor and get the gold even when your gear has 1 durability left on it. Your durability will have different levels based on how you got the gear. So War Tribe gear has way less durability than something that you crafted, because as you're crafting, you can put extra durability on the item so it lasts way longer. When crafting, you'll see this blue icon on the UI. When you hover over it, it tells you the different types of resources that you combined and what it will come up with. So for instance, animal bone, when you put it into this, will create powdered animal bone. And each one of these types of resources change the outcome of what you're actually creating. I'll put a link down in the description to winterblades.net, and what they have on there is the combinations of every single type of item and what that will turn into. And you can see the types of items that you need to maybe to create the specific type of item that you're looking for. There's going to be things that do buffs to healing, and things that do buffs to damage, and things that do buff to your overall, type of damage, penetration or slashing or crushing. So you want to make sure that you're combining your materials properly to be able to have the final outcome on the crafted piece of gear that you make. A few tips for just combat in general here. You lose durability while you're in combat. So as long as you're, in combat, you're losing durability on your gear. So we're at 620 right here, and I'm going to swing a few times. I'm in combat. Wait for it to actually go down. Hold on. So we were just at 620 durability on this piece of gear. Now we're at 617. So just while you're in combat, you lose durability while you're fighting. You can also gain ultimate by auto attacking the air. So if you see my ultimate in the bottom over my Q button right there is not filled up, but as I'm attacking, it is starting to fill up. So if you're about to get in a fight, it's good to try to make sure you have your ultimate, and then you can you do a little bit of auto attacking in the air. You'll go ahead and fill up your ultimate meter. But also your ultimate fills up over time. So as we're sitting here, it's going to slowly go up. You see how it's moving? So your ultimate does go up over time as well. Some classes you never really have to worry about not having your ultimate. You'll have it the majority of the time, but some classes you do kind of have to make sure before you go into a fight, you will get, you have your ultimate, so that way you're able to fight on, the best way you possibly can. So another thing is you cannot cast abilities or switch your bars. I don't have multiple bars on this character, but you cannot cast abilities or switch your bars while you're auto attacking. So as I'm auto attacking, I'm trying to use my one ability here, and it is completely not working. So you want to make sure, if you're like, why is my abilities not firing? That's most likely why you're auto attacking. You can also not use abilities while you're jumping in the air. So make sure, if you're like, why isn't something working? You're not accidentally canceling some of your abilities by either jumping or by auto attacking. So a tip for bandages: when you're in a fight, using bandages can really actually save your life. And most of the time you can use a bandage no matter what, unless you're getting hard CC'd. So I'm going to attack this cow here, right? I'm going to start fighting him, and I'm going to start using my bandage. If he decides to hard CC me, he will knock me out of using this bandage. But as you can see, I'm not being knocked out of it at all as I'm bandaging. He just blinded me there, but that wasn't a hard CC technically. And you can also get out of bandaging if you roll. So to demonstrate how hard CC will knock you out of your bandage, I'm gonna go ahead and try to aggro this boar and see if he will try to come over to me and hard CC me. Although that was his hard CC ability right there. God damn it. There we go. So that knocked me out of my bandage early, barely early, but hard CC. So anything that you have to retaliate out of, anything that knocks you over or moves you away from the spot you're on will knock you out of your bandage. Otherwise, you can continue bandaging as you see fit. So a lot of people wonder what sprinting is for. So sprinting only happens while you're in combat, and it's key bound to the left shift to start off with. So I'm holding down left shift and it's not doing anything, right? But as soon as I get into combat, I'm going to hold it down, and you see how there's another animation. I am moving slightly faster and my stamina bar is going down, but it will instantly stop as soon as you leave combat. So if you're wondering what the hell shift is or what the hell sprint is, that's what it means. It kind of helps you inside of fights, catching up to people in short little bursts. Next little tip is auto attack combos. So every class will have a basic auto attack that they do, and most classes have a combo that happens based on your auto attack. So for instance, a champion, your third strike, what it does is when you hit somebody with it, it reduces the effectiveness of healing that the target receives by 25% for 15 seconds. So make sure when you start playing your class, you look at what your auto attack combo is, because you could be missing out on a really big buff that you can apply to people by not understanding what your auto attack is actually doing. So another tip about AoE abilities, if I hover over my ultimate here, which is an AoE ability, you'll see on the right side, top right, you'll see the circle with 6 meters and then the dots with 5 after it. What that means is that 6 meters is the area around you that AoE will hit. And then that 5 with the 3 dots, that's the number of people, the max number of people that AoE will hit. So just so you know, when you're doing AoEs, keep an eye at those two UI elements to know how many people via your AoE, what it will do. All right, so the next tip is about weapon weight. Every single weapon has a weight stat. So for every 10 weapon weight, it adds 1 second to your cooldowns if you're a pip user. So if you're an assassin or a duelist or a Templar, that will add 1 second to your cooldowns for using those pips, correct? Every 10 weapon weight is minus 5% basic attack damage as well. So the heavier your weapon is, the less attack damage you're doing. When you're dual wielding weapons, your offhand is just really a stat stick, but weapon weight correlates with this. So a good rule of thumb is to have, your main weapon, it could be heavier, but then put on the lightest weapon with the best stats that you possibly can on your offhand. So for abilities that pull people towards you, there are elevation issues with that. So if somebody is above you or below you, sometimes when you're pulling something towards you, pulling a player towards you, it will not work properly. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to cast a net on a Titan or use a chain pull on a knight. So a few tips on auras. As you see, I have Vengeful Aura highlighted here. Now this is a buff that goes to my entire group, right? But auras don't stack. So if I'm running Vengeful Aura and somebody else in my party is running Vengeful Aura, they don't stack, right? So only one is getting used. Also, every time you go through a rune gate in the game, be sure to reset your auras because they don't continue through the rune gates. And then also, if you're a dual bar switching character, if you have 2 bars and you want your aura to continue to be able to be usable, you want to have your aura on both of the bars. Otherwise, it will turn off after a few seconds when you switch to a different bar. Another quick thing is that some abilities can be casted while they're mounted. As you can see, my throw hurlbat here at the very end, it says this power can be used while mounted and dismounts me. So it's a good thing if I'm in a chase with somebody and I'm on my mount and I want to be able to hit them with this hurlbat to slow them down so I can catch up to them, it will automatically dismount me, put me into combat, and then I can instantly use a leap ability or something to catch up to them. This next tip is about CC immunity. So every time you use an ultimate in this game, you have 5 seconds of CC immunity, but then also you turn blue, right? So you see how my character is blue? This means I am CC immune, correct? So every time I use my ultimate, I have 5 seconds CC immunity. Now, this is a good way to know because your enemies will turn blue as well. So if they're blue, you don't want to be casting any of your CC abilities because they'll just be completely immune to it. So now we're going to move into the UI section of these tips here. First things first is the events tab inside of the chat window. One thing to keep in mind is while you're out in the open world, there'll be outposts and forts and keeps and castles that people are taking. And this is a good way to know what is going on in the world. Also, when people pick up pigs to run, which are ways to get materials, that will be posted inside of the events tab. So it will tell you who's doing it, what faction they're a part of, and where on the map they are. So R14. So it just told everybody that, yo, I'm here, come fight me. The next piece of the UI element I want to talk about is the siege schedule. So if I go to the leaderboard here in the bottom right, when I open up the map, it tells you the event schedule. These are all of the forts, the hot zones, the keeps, the castles, everything inside of this server that is going to be attackable and when. So everything has an active, the date tells you if it's today, if it's tomorrow, where it's at, how many capture points and penalty loss you get, and who it's owned by. You can also filter everything. So say if you want to just find all of the hot zones, you can go ahead and filter, and here are all of the hot zones that you can go participate in. And hot zones are longer lasting things that give you double loot, and they're big, you know, PvP areas. To see your friends list in your guild UI, go ahead and click this social tab on the left hand side. This will show you your friends list and your guild. You can also open this up by hitting P as your default character. One tip I like to do inside of the settings menu is change my camera mode inside of the gameplay tab to always ranged or always melee, whatever feels better to you. Adaptive can get a little bit confusing when you're in fights based on when you trace swap and things like that. The camera will be moving in and out to try to put you in what the game thinks is the best way for you to be playing, but I don't suggest doing that. I suggest picking one and sticking with it. I personally like the ranged one. I feel like it gives me a better vantage point, and I like where the crosshair is when it's on always ranged. I'll go ahead and switch it to melee so you guys can see. Melee, it's kind of like right over your head, right? But when I go to always ranged, it's kind of to the right. There's also some other settings I want to show you. So there is a exit cursor mode on player movement. This is checked on by default, I believe. If you want to be able to move around with your UI open, go ahead and uncheck that. There's also the restart open windows when entering cursor mode. So whenever I close and reopen, other than your settings tab for some reason, but when I close and reopen, it will open back up the windows that you had open. So if you're constantly looking at your talents, you can just keep them open and continue to open up the UI. The me tab in the bottom left, this is where you can see that everything that is kind of happening to you. And for right now, this is where whispers will be. So if somebody types /tell and then the person's name and then the message, this is where your whispers will be. So make sure you keep an eye on the me tab. So when you're talking to a vendor, you don't want to have to continuously right click and click yes whenever you're buying something or selling something. So you can hold down control, right click, and it will automatically buy and sell things whatever you click on. Now there's no second guessing this, so as soon as you click on it, it's gone. So make sure you know what you're doing when you're control clicking really quickly. Another part of the UI that is not explained very well are the buffs and the passives. So whenever you have buffs, everything will be on the right side of your screen. See how that vengeful aura tab moves over to the right, but when I open it back up, it moves to the center and I can hover over it and it will tell you what this buff is. You're going to have in fights, you're going to have lots and lots and lots of buffs and debuffs. So you'll be able to know, you'll be able to see what you have. And if you're curious, hover over that. It's going to be hard to do in the middle of a fight, but that is how you would figure that out. And then also there are all of your active passives. So if you're not sure, if what some of your passives are doing, or even if you have a passive, this is where they all are. And you can hover over each one and it will tell you exactly what it does. So there are multiple different types of outposts on the map. I'm at right now what is called a respawn outpost. And at the respawn outpost, there are these banks that you can open up. So you can go ahead and pull things out of your vault or inside of your Dregs bank. So these are really good to have, and they're places to respawn along the map. When you're capturing any outpost, you want to make sure you're kind of staying within this circle here, kind of close to this campfire, and that's how you start capturing stuff. As you can see, when I leave this circle, I stop capturing. But a good way to know what type of outposts are outposts is they'll have, based on the top of monument is added. So everything that's a respawn outpost, I'm not sure if they all always say respawn outpost right there. So just in case, they're always this guy with the crown in one hand and the sword. And then buff outposts, which are god outposts, always have the god's name and look a little bit different. So that one's Archons, and then this one is the Valken outpost, right? So when you go over there, you can gather a buff from interacting with the totem that's there. So hot zones are these zones on the map that are up for a long amount of time, and when you're in there, they give double the loot. You can see all of the hot zones via going to the event schedule, checking for just hot zones, and you'll be able to see when they're all up. Crystal Springs is in the Solarium at V20, which is right here. When I go over here, there'll be a bunch of mobs here, lots of probably PvP because a lot of people will be farming there. There'll be double whatever that type of area gives. Crystal Springs, for instance, is a really good skinning zone, right? So you'll be able to have a lot of mobs there to skin, so you can get double hide compared to everywhere else in the world. So when I talk about running pigs or doing caravans, what I'm talking about are these pig locations. So on the map, there are these green caravan pig locations, and each one of these will provide a different place. If it's inside of a forest, these will give wood. If it's on top of a mountain, they will give stone. If it's down inside of a crevasse, it will give ore. And sometimes they don't have these icons on them, so it's still good to know where the pigs will be. And what you do is you take that pig to a refinery, which is this icon on the map, and that will refine the unrefined resources into the resources you need to be able to craft. And then you can also use the pig resources to be able to build things inside of your keep. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different types of damage that you're able to do. So there are a few different damage types. There are crushing, disease, electricity, fire, ice, humanoid, nature, piercing, poison, slashing, undead, holy. There's lots of different types of damage that you can do. So when you're doing a specific type of damage, what that really does is just kind of modify your damage, your normal damage, into that type. So it's something that can be, resisted against, built against. So I can build specifically piercing resistance, and there's specific abilities and there's specific classes that lean toward doing specific types of damage. So for instance, the Confessor, their focus is fire damage, right? So the majority of the damage that they're putting out is all fire damage. So that's how you can kind of know what you're doing. So for instance, I have a 10% slashing damage bonus on this character right now. A few tips for damage, especially for, an alpha warrior, which is a champion subclass here. You do what is called crushing damage. So you want to make sure you're maximizing the type of damage that you're doing. So you want to have, for instance, a mace, because maces do more crushing damage. And then you also want to make sure you try to get gear on your character that helps buff crushing damage even more. And then your abilities with specific damage types will overwrite your main class's damage. So if I had an ability that did fire damage, that will overwrite the crushing damage that my class does. Holy damage cannot be resisted. It's basically just true damage. The only times that damage do anything a little bit different is on side of quivers for rangers. So for instance, slashing damage on a quiver will increase your execute damage. Piercing adds bleed to your targets. Crushing adds a stun on the third auto attack. So there's many different ways that damage really affects characters inside of Crowfall. The next thing about kind of building your character is that everything has a hard cap and a soft cap. Your attribute points all have a soft cap of 200, and you can raise this all the way up to 250 via vessel creation. So once you equip the new vessel, right now I'm on a level 30, which has a gray vessel equipped to it. If I were to equip a white vessel, which I can because I'm level 30, I would be able to raise my soft caps all the way up to the hard cap, which is 250, and be able to have more strength than I have right now. Your disciplines, while I'm on test right now, I have legendary, they all start off on white. You can upgrade them via the crafting menu based on the type, and it will tell you what you need. You normally need 3 of one type and then soul essence to be able to upgrade your discipline. And as you upgrade it, the stats get better and you continuously add more statistics. So for instance, a scrapper discipline that is just a white or a green won't have plus 5% critical damage or plus 500 damage. So that's one thing, that's one of the progression paths inside of Crowfall, is upgrading these extra disciplines that your character has. And then another quick tip is you can just unequip your disciplines by moving them down into your inventory and then moving them back up. So if you want to try out different things for your class, say, oh, I don't want to try Paragon anymore on this class, I could just unequip it, put it in my bank. Now these are soul bind to me, so I can't trade them to other players or sell them or drop them. I can only destroy it or use it on my account.